Yeah, I'm going to put up a website for an investment product that we are trying to work on with the Altadena area in California, the black community that has been burned out. So I want to talk about the process and what we're going through there. Our partners had been National NMS, not NMSDC, NARAB, National Association of Real Estate Brokers, which is the black real estate group, right? We haven't found them to be very helpful. The other partner has been a bank. I don't even know if I should mention the bank. It's a bank that's no, all right, no. I have no problem mentioning these guys. It's Banner Bank. Banner Bank is about a $16 billion bank, headquartered in the state of Washington, but with a significant footprint in Los Angeles. So we went to them with this idea of creating a series of investment vehicles. Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae. Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are GSEs. They are entities that were created to facilitate the provision of mortgage credit to all communities. The one community they left out, guess which one? It was ours. So we've been working over the years to try to get them to come into the black community and provide mortgage credit on consistently fair bases. And when you look at Altadena in California, the thing about Altadena is that black families had been resident there for 2, 3, 4, 5 generations, So we had a significant presence there until we got burned out. Now, it turns out that Freddie Mac has a loan product which goes from a lot loan to a construction loan to a mortgage loan. Perfect for the Altadena area. I mean, perfect, where you go, because you have a lot, you still own the lot, but you need your house burned down, so you need to construct something on the lot. And then once you construct something on the lot, then you need to get a mortgage on whatever that structure is that you just put up, which is your new house. The problem is, what's happening with black people out there, white people showing up with $100,000 in cash, you sitting there in the lot in a tent, showing up with a satchel of $100,000 in cash. Hey, look, I'll buy your lot. I'll buy for this. I got the money right here. What you think? It's raining. You're in a tent. You want to. So there have been all kinds of issues. We have been trying. Thank you very much. No. It's the one that, it's the LA. Well, no. Let's start there. We'll start there. This is, and we'll send all of this stuff to you. Going back to the origination of the black environmental movement, this is a project from 2010. There was a lady by the name of, Blacks in Green. Anybody heard of that group? There's a group called Blacks in Green. Naomi Davis in Chicago. She, back in 2000, was the person that got said, hey, black people are involved in the environmental movement. How is it we don't get any of the press or any of the respect or any of the money that comes with being in the environmental movement? I'm going to start a group, or I'm going to facilitate a group, and this is for you young people in the back. I see you guys. The environmental side is very important for you all, because if you don't, if the temperature is 110 degrees on average, you're not going to have a place to live, all right? So that's why this is very important. So we worked to create a series of environmental movements focused on the black community alongside Naomi Davis at Blacks in Green. I would encourage you all to reach out to Google, join Blacks in Green. The group is still around. Now, let's take a look at the next slide, the website. Let's see here. The next email that I sent you with the link. Okay, another link. Where's the first link? There you go. Links for today. There you go. That's the one. No, the second one first. All right. So this is, go down to that map, please. Remember I talked yesterday about creating and click on that map so that the graphic shows up. It'll show up in a second. Remember I talked yesterday about creating the critical analysis tool that helped to create a firm called BlackRock. BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager, the world's largest asset manager. We worked with them in 1990 through this. I know you can't see it, but we'll send it to you. You know, what this is a map showing the loans in a certain mortgage-backed security. I just talked about Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and mortgage-backed securities, which are securities that consist of individual mortgage loans. Well, it turned out nobody had thought to actually create a map, and this was done in 1990, by the way, with a software tool called Maptitude. Maptitude. You used to have to do this yourself on your own computer. You had a bunch of CD-ROMs, you know, when you mapped it. No such thing. This is pre-Google Maps, way before Google Maps, okay? You can do it easily now, but we helped to create that because what happens is once you understand where the parts of your investment reside geographically, then you can determine with great confidence the value of this investment vehicle in a way that other people cannot. That's what led BlackRock to be able to claim superior investment performance. Because once they looked at our map, and what happened was, once BlackRock saw our map, they said, holy moly, but we need to do that. How did you do that? Maptitude? The program cost $600 or something. You know. So they went out, they got it, they mapped all of their stuff and became BlackRock. All right, now let's go to that second link. I'll bring you up to speed. I'm sorry, I had to walk through all of this in order to get us up to that next, which is LA. Actually, well, I guess you got to go to the email. You know, I talked about Los Angeles. I talked about Altadena. I talked about the black community that got burned out and what we are trying to do to repair some of the damage in that community and specifically why we have been unable to do so. I want to tell the story about how this works so y'all know kind of how this works. If you go back to that email, Brady, and then go to, yeah, that one, top one. All right. Again, working with NARAB, and Thaddeus can talk in detail about NARAB and their lack of performance in the black community from a mortgage or home ownership perspective, and why we need to continue to be on these institutions. We need to continue to, let's see here. It's not going to, how about, try typing that in, LA Community Recovery Invest. There you go.
Open a new browser. I think you just got a lot open.
Oh, okay. Copy that. There you go. FS, I think, Control V. There you go. All right. Looks like that's going to work. So the idea is that here we are in this geography where we have been present for 50, 60, 70, 80 years. One of the first areas where black people were able to go in and buy homes comfortably. This LA Altadena area was one of the original areas for black home ownership. And suddenly there's a big wildfire and we get burned out. Two, three generation types of homes, we get burned out and we cannot re-enter that community. So what do? So what we had proposed was to utilize the federal assets that exist in order to facilitate home ownership. Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, they're supposed to work for us. They're located right here. You know, right here in Washington, D.C. They're supposed to facilitate home ownership for U.S. citizens, for everybody in the U.S. So, however, when it comes to us, suddenly, it don't work. You know, in an emergency situation, let's see. No, let's see if it will come up. In an emergency situation where this type of support is absolutely required, you know, the idea is to go in, create these mortgages, backed by these properties that had been burned out. I just mentioned the Freddie Mac loan program that goes from a lot loan to a construction loan to a mortgage loan. That's supposed to be all you need. You got the lot. The black family owns the lot, right? There's no house on it anymore because it burned out, but you still own the lot, you know. What you need is you need a lot loan to go to a construction loan to go to a mortgage loan, 30-year mortgage loan. It's supposed to work. It works for white people. Somehow it doesn't work for us. So what we've been trying to do, there you go. Thank you very much, Brady. What we've been trying, go down a little bit. What we've been trying to do is to create this type of investment vehicle. The story is this. NARAB recommended Banner Bank. NARAB said, hey, one of our partners is this bank called Banner Bank. So we started to have these conversations with the senior people at Banner Bank. There were actually 3 people. There was a black guy who was their CRA officer who they hired about a year ago. There was a white guy who was a senior vice president who'd been there forever, been there for 20 years. And there was another white guy who'd been there about 10 years. He was the operational guy. He was the guy at the ground level that was handling loans, right? So the black guy was in the middle. So we have all these meetings, NARAB, they bring in all these black brokers and No, you just know the organization and you have a very good understanding of their faults and their. That's right. No, I'm not trying to put you in with them. I'm just saying, you can validate my story. I ain't making this stuff up. So what happened was the 2 white guys at the bank started to hold all these community meetings. Oh, we want to talk to you. Oh, let's go out. Weren't paying a dime. Asked them for $10 to buy some snacks at a meeting. They even refused that, That's how cheap these white guys were, So when it came down to it, we said, look, we've identified homeowners in this area that would benefit from this Freddie Mac product. Lot loan to construction loan to home loan, Therefore, why don't you facilitate that process so that we can create a $10 million pool of these mortgages and sell that to CalPERS, the big California pension fund. Now, it turns out, in order to do that, you need some upfront money. You need some upfront money to hold some session, bring people together, rent out a space, it's going to take a little money, So we asked them for that money. Initially, they said fine. So the black guy, remember I talked about the black guy in the middle? He was all for it. He was, oh, yeah, we got some money. The 2 white guys overruled him, all right? Suddenly, at the end of the process, and I felt bad for the brother. I understood where he was coming from. It's not his fault. He didn't overrule the thing, but, that's kind of the way these organizations operate. So we were not able to initially get this investment product created, but we are still working on it. Brady, if you go back to the top of the website, let's click on some of those. Principles would be a good one. Again, what we're looking to do is to preserve black home ownership in these critical areas where black populations have been present for 100 years. We've been out there for a minute. The problem is with the wildfires and with what's going on right now, you are going to see a complete removal of the black population from these areas, Altadena, other parts of California. Same thing. Where else is that going on? Anybody else seen that same? Washington, D.C. Same thing going on in Washington, D.C. It's going on in other areas. Atlanta, I understand Atlanta has a similar type of issue with black. Detroit, all kinds of areas. So Altadena is just the latest and most visible part of this community renewal, community removal plan and process, which is, again, important for you guys. Where are you going to live? Where are you going to stay? How are you going to be comfortable in the areas that you grew up in? With these types of things, not so much. Now, the other thing that we had been looking at was using, and I think this is why Kevin had mentioned the sustainability aspect of this project, something called energy efficient mortgages. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD have had programs to create mortgages on properties that are made as energy efficient as possible since 1974. Since 1974, the federal government has had a mortgage loan project where you could buy a house, you could get an additional loan to change the windows, the furnace, to make all that stuff, the water heater, make all that stuff as energy efficient as possible. Now, what happens when you swap out your old utilities to make them as energy as efficient as possible? What happens to the cost of operating that house when you do that? Young people, any idea? Does it go up or down? Up or down? Down. Thank you. It goes down. It goes down because you're not spending as much on utilities anymore. Now, if your operating costs go down, the chances of you staying in that house go up because you have to pay less money on a monthly basis in order to maintain your ownership of that house. So that's what we've been trying to accomplish. That's what we've been trying to do that's why one of the principles here is sustainability and resilience. That's what we've been trying to do. But we've been blocked at every effort, every step of the way by these large non-minority financial institutions who seem to be focused. And, you know, I get it. Kevin and I also talk about something called Chicago School Economics. Write that down, Chicago School Economics. That's a bunch of conservative, right-wing economic theories that have come to dominate the United States of America. All this stuff about free markets and stock markets, all this, markets are the way. No, they're good. They're good when they work right, but they don't automatically lead to the maximum social output for society. They do not automatically. You have to watch them. You have to guard against greed. So that's kind of what we've been doing. Let's see. I think you want to go to, let's see which tab. We won't go to partners. I guess you can go back to home on this thing, back to the home tab. The damage in Altadena, the damage in California has been substantial. Thousands and thousands of buildings, homes burned down, burned to the ground. And again, because we were overrepresented in those geographies, there were a lot more of us in those geographies because our grandfathers, fathers, other people had the foresight to reside in some of those geographies. When all of those areas got burned out, we were impacted negatively more than other populations. It's what we see. So we're just trying to do a little thing of repairing some of the damage. Anything else?
Yeah, how does that fit in with Thaddeus's valuations and saving of black properties?
So basically, it fits in strategically, systemically, because over 65% of all black folks' wealth is in real estate and land. And so in this particular instance, they've had it in the families for hundreds of years. And so that's where we run into heirs property. And if we've got the proper deeds and trusts set up. If not, now we've got fractionalized interest where it may have been okay as long as everybody had some place to live. We wasn't really worrying about it. We're taking care of the taxes. Now, if it's burned down and you want to go back to rebuild, you've got to have clear chain of title, or else you won't be able to get the funding. The other way that impacts.
How many of the population of Altadena are in that situation where they don't have clear title?
Don't know. It's a lot. That's a great question. See, those are the types of questions that the city and the county should be able to answer. They should know what the current situation is. Oh, this house over here, 4 heirs, and they're all fighting. Or over here, 2 heirs, and they're on the same page. That's the kind of information that you pay a government to collect and monitor and maintain.
But when it comes to us, those statistics are never really actually kept which opens the door for wealth extraction. And so this is either it's forced, this would happen to be a natural disaster, but when it comes to opportunities for relief, there's been some legislation, I think it started in 2012, on the Uniform Heirs Property Act. And I think it's mostly in the southern states in the Black Belt. I'm not really sure if it's gotten to California. It's only in 13 states, and I'm not sure if California is one of them.
Question for you then: should there be a bill in Congress or in the appropriations process trying to get language in that would either provide emergency funding to ease that gap that you're talking about in terms of the building that you can't get Fannie and Freddie to do it?
Well, one of the things that they did allow is usually you have to have clear title in order to get emergency relief. But now, if you are in an heirs property situation, you can have an executor, as long as everybody agrees on that can carry it out in order to get where you need to be. But now the other side to what he's talking about with all those loans, they're going to be based on appraisals, and so you'll be able to get 80%, 70% loan to value. And where that comes into play for us is we are always being undervalued. But where the good part is, because it's being new, now you can use new construction costs, and the cost approach is a very viable approach when it comes to new construction real estate. The only problem with that is they haven't required it in 15 to 20 years. And if you look at my article on the miseducation appraiser, not only can they not measure velocity, but they can't do the cost approach either. And then building costs have gone up astronomically. So if whatever cost index you're using, it's going to be outdated if you throw some tariffs on there, access, and then when you get into a situation like Altadena, now you've got labor shortages. So even let's say you got all the money, it might be 2 years before you got enough people to be able to execute, because now they're running the cost up to be able to do it. And there's that lag time. And so you waiting 2 years. So where do you live during those 2 years? Is your insurance going to be at? Are you staying in a tent till your house get built? And like Bill said, you coming by with a bag, 100 grand, 200 grand. I mean, what's my options? Is quality of life, or I'm going to hold on to something in the future? And most of us, unfortunately, are hand to mouth. And if you have inherited that property, you might not more than likely be in a position to be able to take advantage of it. So this is gentrification at its finest. But the wealth extraction, what's so important and what I advocate for is reconsideration of value. And it's the number one tool in preserving wealth, because it doesn't accuse the appraiser of being racist or anything. All we ask you to do is explain your information. And in my latest paper about miseducation of the appraiser, we talk about the FHFA report that was done in 2024, where they talk about only 10% of all appraisals use market conditions adjustments. 10%. That's across the board.
Well, let me ask you this question. To stick with the Altadena situation, it doesn't seem like appraisals aren't the number one problem with Altadena right now. I mean, we've got other, like the heirs property. What program do you put in place to save that project?
Go ahead.
Well, the program that he talked about, for one,
But it's not, obviously it's not viable. So,
but it is viable.
Yeah, utilized correctly.
It's very viable if utilized correctly. But in implementation, and now we get into the velocity of money.
mm-hmm.
You got somebody coming to give you $150,000.
Right.
Most of those lots are what, $300,000, $400,000?
Even more.
Yeah.
They're-
So now you getting a fraction, but you got cash in hand. But you'll be able to take the money, but you won't be able to replace the wealth.
Right.
They're moving in with equity,
Yeah.
$200,000 off the rip.
So then, and maybe I didn't ask the question right the first time. If that being the case, if you can't get the construction loans, whatever the programs, if these aren't working, because a lot of programs don't work for us, what else can you do? Because obviously this program isn't being utilized, right, at any great effect. So what do you do?
So looking holistically at the problem, one thing you need is you need a bucket of cash. You need some cash to offer to the current owners of the property in that geography, even across the family lines. You need to identify, what you can do, you can identify who the actual owners are. Although they have had some issues in Altadena with people faking titles to homes, because of all of the drama and the fires and all that. Oh, no, you don't own that lot. I own that lot, and here's, So one of the things you need to do is you need to have the state step in, the state and local authorities step in to secure title to the property. That's number one.
Wouldn't the county have
The county, yes.
for tax purposes?
Yep, the county would be, whoever the entity is. That's number one. Number two, once you've done that, then you need to come in with a bucket of money to say to people, hey, we understand that you're in a tough spot. Here's some money to tide you over, based on your ownership of that property as verified by the county title people, county assessor. Then, once you've done that, then you need to attach to the financial institutions, the Banner Banks or the Freddie Mac or the Fannie Mae, the Ginnie Mae, those types, to develop a mortgage product that would basically allow you to, and when you look at Altadena and when you look at those areas, the damage is vast. I mean, my goodness, man, you look at the pictures, the whole blocks, miles and miles of property burned down.
So I want to take you back to step 2. What kind of money, where do you target that money? I mean, this is not mortgage money, it's not investment money. This is where's that money? How do you envision that money coming to?
If all of the homeowners were white, the money would come directly from the state. And I'll tell you why. It would come from the state based on the ownership of that property, the future tax revenues from that property that you own. But because we're talking about black people, we know the state is reluctant to give up any kind of cash flow on behalf of the social benefit of black people, So that's part of the issue, but that's where you would go. Now, you would like to have a private equity or somebody step in on a fair basis to provide money to the homeowners of those properties, but we know that they're not going to provide money on a fair basis. They're going to try to rip you off. They're going to try to steal the property because it is so valuable. Now, again, ideally what you would have is you'd have the state step in and say, listen, if you try to steal that property, we're going to take you to court or we're going to do something. Yeah. But they're not going to do that either because you're talking about a bunch of black homeowners. They'll do it for white people. They won't necessarily do it for black people. So
I think this would be a prime opportunity to get back to what we talked about earlier with cooperative development. I think it would be an opportunity to do a capital fundraising campaign, and I would like to see it done utilizing cryptocurrency. And so people can invest utilizing the blockchain. So with the blockchain, you got a true record of transparency for the fractional interest. So no amount is too small or no amount is too big. And once you get that pool together, then you can move forward. And the blockchain, it keeps the smart contracts. Yeah. So not only can you keep track of the money and the fractionalized interest, but everybody, you can do $100, and this could be financed outside of the banking system.
So then why hasn't anyone done that?
Because the banks won't allow you to do it. You had a comment question?
Can you expand on cryptocurrency? Because I think some people in their mind think that it's unattainable to obtain that type of currency. Can you expand on that?
I mean, like right now, I think Bitcoin is probably trading under 63 or 60,000, and at the high, it was at $120,000. So what it is it's non-traditional financing based on high-speed computer technology and being able to track it. And so the Bitcoin is the first layer. Then everything else goes on.
Well, let me. So, digital currency is money that resides electronically and whose ownership is verified through something called a blockchain, which is a disaggregated database of ownership. Here's the way to think about it. And I've got a class on this, which I'm happy to provide, free class on Bitcoin. So the way to think about Bitcoin and digital currency is as follows. Imagine a big Excel spreadsheet that shows each row shows who owns this digital currency, right? So row 1 is you, row 2 is her, row 3 is me, and at the end column it shows how much of the digital currency you own. Row 1, you own 2 of those. Row 2, that person owns 3. Row 3, that person owns 10, right? Now here's the deal. The next column after the ownership column is another column that allows you to change the ownership column. So you have this cell that you have to have a value in there, and you have to have the right value in there in order to change the ownership cell. So you got this column over here, it has this what's called a cryptographic key. Cryptographic key in that column, in that cell. If you don't have the right cryptographic key, you can't change the other cell that shows how much of that cryptocurrency you own. So that's kind of the whole, it's just a big Excel spreadsheet. That's all it is, with these columns that lock data so that you can't change it unless you have the key. If you have the key, you can change ownership. And the way the key is managed is through something called a blockchain, which basically is a bunch of people saying, okay, yeah, I agree. Bill owns 3 Bitcoin, so we'll let him sell, we'll let him change, buy, sell, whatever, because we agree he's got the right key to change the ownership cell. Does that make sense?
So, Bill, we're out of time.
Yeah.
Right, but Bill's here, so you can harass him in the corner. He'll be glad to give you Bitcoin.
Okay. Yep.
But guys, thanks for this. I mean, we should do a show on this because we do need to talk about, like, I love the conversation about how we need a bucket of money, but we always need a bucket of money, but no one ever tells us where the bucket is. So I'm going to have that conversation. So,
But I like what he says as far as the bucket, but with the blockchain, we can do a grassroots campaign. We can nickel and dime the bucket because everybody don't want to put the. We can't find the bucket, but I think that also opens it up to international investment because it's deregulated.
we're
And
gonna
so,
fight. We're gonna. I got to do the next. But we're gonna have this conversation because everyone's.
Regulations of translating that into real estate?
no, it's matter of fact, BlackRock just started. They're trying to digitize a gazillion dollars worth of assets, and once they do that, we will be locked out completely and totally. So if we don't start now, it's not going to happen because we are going through the largest transformation of wealth in history, and it's about to accelerate. So the gap is going to get wider.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.